Most men don't quit because it's hard. They quit because they're tired of deciding. Every day is the same quiet negotiation. Should I train today? What should I eat? Can I get away with skipping this one? And by the time the day is over, the decision has already been made, not consciously, by fatigue. You don't have a discipline problem. You have a decision problem. And decisions are expensive. Let's talk about why discipline was never the issue. Welcome back to Iron Suit. I am your host, Marwan Killu. Happy New Year to you guys. I hope you've had a good one, whatever you want up to. If you listened to my last podcast, I was in Cancun, Mexico. So I owe you guys an apology for not doing another one. I do one every Tuesday and Thursday. But I did it the previous Thursday whilst I was in Cancun, or was it a Sunday that I did? No, it was a Thursday. Yes, it was a Thursday. It came out on Thursday, but I couldn't do one for the Tuesday just because there were so many people there. I couldn't get away. And the other thing is that the Wi-Fi was so slow that every single video is literally about a video or an actual podcast, something like a gig. And so the upload is so slow that it actually takes too long to do the podcast, upload it, cut the bits and pieces, edit it and stuff, and then download it onto my laptop and then upload it onto the podcast stations as well. So it's quite a lot of work. But I'll make it up for you guys, and I'll aim to do another one this week for you for Sunday. So this one is going to come out tomorrow, Thursday, what date is it? Thursday the 8th, and there's going to be another one on Sunday. I might try and squeeze a quick one in for another day. All right. So let's talk about why discipline was never the issue. Okay. Do you know something that's really funny? The men that I talk to, a lot of them think that they have a discipline problem. These men who don't miss meetings, these men who never forget payroll, who don't need motivation to exercise. But they tell me, you know what, Marwan, I just need to be more disciplined with my training, my diet, my sleep. And look, I get it because that's the obvious diagnosis. Okay. If you're not doing the thing, then you must lack the discipline to do it, right? Except you don't need the motivation to execute. You do it because it's required. Okay, so discipline is not your problem. Something else is. So let's talk about what? High-performing men have discipline in every area except one. And that one, you guessed it, is their body. They'll optimize their calendar, their team, their capital stack. But when it comes to training, nutrition, and recovery, it's chaos, okay? It's reactive, emotional, or all nothing. And they'll blame the discipline. Discipline is not the issue, right? You don't have a system that you trust. You have a collection of tactics that you deploy when you feel motivated. So it's like going to the gym, right? And thinking, okay, what can I do today to make my muscles scream and make it really hard for me? I know, let's do some drop sets. Let's do some rest pause. Let's do negatives, whatever, right? It's like doing one exercise, deciding to do rest pause on the bench press. You rack it for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and go again. And then I do another 10 seconds and go again, another 10 seconds and go again. And then if that wasn't enough, then we'll do like a drop set. All right, so we'll unrack the weight. We'll put another bunch of plates on, and then like do another sort of mini set, so to speak. Okay, when you're feeling strong, when you're feeling motivated, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm too tired today, I can't do this. Okay. And so motivation is not a strategy, it's a feeling. And feelings are unreliable. Like, how many times do you feel like eating clean? Even for a guy that like his lifestyle is eating clean, right? And walking and going to the gym, I don't feel like it sometimes. Okay, but it's unreliable. It's unreliable, but I do it anyway. Like, the feelings come and go based on sleep, stress, how your last meeting went, how your body's feeling. Again, that comes into stress. I'll give you a personal example. I was like, I do a lot of walking, and I found out that my gait isn't quite right. So when I land on my toes rather on my heels, and so I'm sort of falling over. And I'm feeling like real tired when I'm walking, thinking, something is not right. I'm falling over. Why is that? And I realized that getting heel pain. So I'll get on the phone with my guy, the nervous system guy, and look, Owen, I've got a pain in my heel. What does that correlate to? He goes, most likely it's going to be the way that you walk. Do you land on your toes, maybe? And so, like, getting blisters on my toes, I'm thinking, hold on a second. One, I'm wearing barefoot shoes so that my toes are spaced out. So why is that happening? So what happens is the toes sort of jam on each other. Anyway, that's like part of the stress, that sort of invisible stress, right? But I was doing it anyway. And so, like, you don't run your business on feelings, but that's exactly how you're running your body. Like in your business, do you wait to like feel like sending the payroll over? Right? Do you feel like waiting to reviewing, like, do you wait to feel like you want to review the P&L? No, because you have a system. Payroll runs maybe on the 1st, on the 15th, or whether you feel like it or not. A P&L gets reviewed every month, whether you're inspired, whether you had a good month or not such a good month. You don't question it. You don't negotiate with yourself. It's just infrastructure, right? So now, when was the last time you approached your body like infrastructure? Not a project, not a challenge, not a reset, infrastructure. Something that runs in the background, predictably, reliably, right? And most men can't answer that because they've never treated their body like infrastructure. They've treated it like it's a problem to solve. And problems require intensity. Infrastructure requires systems. Okay? And here's why that distinction matters. Because when you treat something like a problem, you approach it with urgency. You throw energy at it. You try to fix it fast. Get me? When you treat something like infrastructure, you approach it with patience. You build it slowly. You maintain it consistently. You don't expect immediate results. You expect long-term reliability. The same as your business. Okay, you don't think a problem don't think that business is a problem. Right? You treat it like a system. You have infrastructure. You know that the long-term payoff is there to give you your pension, you fund your lifestyle, to whatever, all right, to funding your freedom, whatever your goal of going into business, okay? And most men with their bodies don't have that patience because patience doesn't feel like progress, okay? Think about every diet you've tried: keto, paleo, Whole30, IF, intermittent fasting. Every program had the same story. You went hard 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe 6 if conditions were perfect. Then something broke. Travel, stress, and they were going sideways, and you fell off. Not gradually, completely. So at an all-inclusive resort this past week. We went in on the 28th. I was back on Monday, on the 4th. And so I know who I am. Okay. I know I didn't I didn't track anything over there. Hey, I wanted to, but I didn't track anything. And so I had no way of knowing what every food was. But I made decisions based on who I am, based on the system that I have. All inclusive means all food and drink, alcohol, everything. Whilst all my family, it's all like there's 25 of us. Not all 25 were drinking because some were like kids and underage, but most of them were drinking. And I was the only one drinking water, and they're doing cheers, arriba in Spanish, and I was drinking water, doing cheers with water. Everyone was eating these desserts and cookies and cakes and waffles and crepes. And I was like, okay. They're grown men picking up like 5, 6 of these, eating them at one time. And I'm like, it's like, gosh, it's like acting out of scarcity. I'm like, nah, not for me, right? Not that I didn't indulge. I had an ice cream. I had a couple of stuff that I wouldn't normally have. But like, I know who I am. I had a strategy. Right? Anyway, so the question that's worth asking here is, if a strategy has failed 5 times, would you try it a 6th time in your business? The answer is no. You would try a different strategy. So why are you trying the same strategy with your body? I'll tell you why, because you keep blaming discipline. Hey, but discipline is not your problem. Your strategy is your problem. You're trying to solve an infrastructure problem with intensity. And intensity does not build infrastructure. It just burns you out. See, systems feel boring, and boring feels beneath you. And I get it. I used to be the same thing. Hey, I'm like you guys. I was the same thing in the gym. I go hard, go home. No pain, no gain. Arnold, like if I wasn't sweating and aching and like not being able to walk out of the gym, then it didn't work. Then that's not working. Eventually, I learned the hard way. The body is like, enough is enough. Right? Simple as that. Sometimes it takes something to shock you, and then you start to learn. So boring feels, well, beneath you. You're a high performer. You're used to optimizing, innovating, pushing. Systems don't reward that. Systems reward patience. And compliance feels like you're not in control. But you're confusing control with flexibility. You think, I don't need a rigid system. I can be disciplined when I need to be. And maybe you can for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and then life happens. Travel, stress, and they'll go sideways, and your discipline collapses. Not because you're weak, but because you never built a system that could withstand variability. You build a system that requires perfect conditions, and perfect conditions do not exist. So go back to the holiday in Cancun that I was at. Again, if I waited for perfect conditions, I would never be able to build muscle or lose fat. So I needed a system that I was able to do wherever I am, with whoever I am. I still trained, but I didn't train at the intensity that I trained back home. I still ate some food, but I didn't eat as rigidly, or I didn't have all the meals that I wanted to eat back over there. All right. So trying to eat 3,300 calories of like protein, it's just not happening. Okay. So it had to be innovative, right? A few treats here and there, more than I'd have back at home. Hey, but still, majority of my food was great, was good food. I still got my steps in. Hey, I was still disciplined, but I had a system to follow. I still did everything else with everybody, right? So to go like you don't want to have a system that or not have a system that you're just rigid the whole time and leave no time for anything. Okay? And this is a thing that most men to understand. I don't say no time for anything. I mean, you don't make any time for anything. So, for example, if you're doing keto, then you're the sort of one that makes all the decisions, but then you sort of go to the night out with clients, dinner with clients, and you're like pretending that you don't want the carbs, and you like have to shy away from the carbs. Right. So you're controlled by these things rather than you being in control. So over there, I was in control. The food didn't control me. I was in control. So I look at all these men and they're grabbing plates and grown men with bellies hanging over. They're grabbing all this food. And I'm like, bet you never have that back at home. Right? And that's the scarcity mindset. Men think, you guys think that systems are restrictive, but the systems are the opposite of restrictive. It's systems that create freedom. Because systems remove decisions and decisions are expensive. So system is eating this many calories. That creates a freedom because then I know that food is just a calorie. Okay, ice cream is just calories. So I'm eating an ice cream. Does it fit into my macros or does it not? Does a cake fit into my macros or does it not? Right? And by the way, I'm not shaming any of these men for eating any of that food, but eating this much for that kind of sugary food first thing in the morning just makes you feel like shit. Your blood sugar drops, and then all you're doing is just eating the whole time, and you're feeling lethargic. Okay. So every time you have to decide whether to train, you're using energy. Every time you have to decide what to eat, you're using energy. And at the end of the day, when you're tired, stressed, decision fatigued, you choose the path of least resistance. Again, I'm going to mention back the holiday when I was over there. Just eating whatever. They had a buffet. So what can I eat in the buffet? Right, there's chicken, there's beef, and there's rice. Okay, let's go for that. That's it. Decision easy. What else is there? Do they have fruit? Let's go for fruit. And then the decision was whether to have ice cream that night or whether not to have ice cream. Easy, so I don't have to think. In the morning, they got eggs, I'm going to eat eggs. Protein, right? It makes me feel good. Takes out the decisions. And so the path of least resistance is nothing. You've had this thought before, maybe after a few weeks of being on. You don't want to be one of these guys, you say to yourself, I don't want to be one of these guys who's obsessed with macros, who weighs their food, who just can't enjoy a meal. And I get it, okay? It sounds restrictive. But let me ask you this. Do you resent your calendar? Do you resent your budgets? Your KPIs? Your SOPs? No. Because you understand that structure creates freedom. Okay, imagine if you didn't have a budget and your company goes out and spends money here, there, and everywhere. At the end of the day, you look at P&L, oh, well, we don't have any money in the checking account, current account, whatever it's called. Okay. And it's like, okay, all right, that's not good. Okay? So your food is exactly the same. It's a budget. Some people have higher budgets. Some people have lower budgets. It depends on what on your body. Okay. So for me, it's 3,300 calories. That's quite a high budget. I can spend that every day, or I can accumulate it and spend more the next day, or spend more in one day, but budget, but at the end of the week, I've got to bring it back down. Okay. Structure is what allows you to decide. Okay. Structure allows you to scale, to delegate, to not think about every single decision. Your body is not a project, it's infrastructure. Structure creates freedom. Structure is what allows you to travel, handle stress, live your life without constantly negotiating with yourself. But you resist it because structure feels like you're admitting that you can't handle flexibility. And that feels weak. But it's not weak. It's smart. Because flexibility without structure is just chaos. And chaos is what you've been living in. You've been flexing discipline when you feel like it and calling that freedom. But it's not freedom. It's just inconsistency with a better story. Real freedom is a system runs whether you feel like it or not. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to negotiate with yourself. It just happens. Because that's the system. Imagine you hire a COO, right? Smart guy, capable. You're paying him, I don't know, 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand, whatever. Okay, arbitrary amount, doesn't matter. But he doesn't believe in the systems. He goes, I don't need the playbook. I just figure out as I go along. I'm disciplined, right? Are you going to trust him? No, you're like, there's no way I'm going to give you my business, right? You go, get the fuck out, right? Seriously. Because discipline without systems is just chaos with good intentions, right? And you never run your business that way. But that's exactly how you're running your body. You got discipline, but you don't have systems. And without systems, discipline is just a muscle that you flex when you feel like it. And here's the deeper issue. Let's straighten up my mic. You think you're too complex for simple systems. You think my schedule is unpredictable, my stress levels vary, my travel schedule is insane. So you need flexibility, right? But flexibility is what's killing you. Because flexibility means you decide every time. And every time you decide, you're spending energy. And eventually you run out. So you default to nothing. Not because you're weak, but because you're tired. And tired people default to their infrastructure. And you don't have any. Systems remove decisions, and decision making is expensive. Every time you have to decide whether to train, you're using energy. Every time you have to decide what to eat, you're using energy. And by the end of the day, when you're tired, stressed, decision fatigued, you choose the path of least resistance. Systems remove that. The days are decided in advance. The defaults are decided in advance. The system runs whether you feel like it or not, and systems do not negotiate. Here's what I mean. Think about someone who travels constantly. High stress environment, unpredictable schedule, no system, trains when they have time, eats clean when they can, sleeps when their schedule allows. Nothing sticks. Now imagine they built a system. 3, 4 training days, non-negotiable, same time each week. Tracks their meal, 8 hours in bed, not negotiable. That's it. No complexity, no optimization, just these are the defaults. Hey, first 2 weeks feel restrictive because chaos feels normal. By week 4, there's no resistance. By week 8, it doesn't even require a thought. It just runs. And 6 months later, its transformation is undeniable. Not because of more discipline, But because there's a system that doesn't require discipline, it just requires compliance. And compliance is easy when decisions already been made. You don't have a discipline problem. You have an identity problem. Because deep down, you don't trust a system that will work for you. You think, I'm different. I'm busier. I'm more complex. And maybe you are, but your body isn't. Your body responds to consistency, predictability, non-negotiables, just like your business. But you resist that because systems feel like they're for other people, for people who need structure because they can't self-regulate. And you're not one of these people. Except every time you try just to be disciplined without a system, it collapsed. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And humans need infrastructure. And here's what you're not admitting to yourself. You like the chaos because the chaos lets you feel like you're in control. You're making decisions. You're being flexible. You're adapting. And that feels smart. That feels like high performance. But it's not. It's just exhausting. And exhausting is not the same as effective. Systems feel like giving up control, but they're not. They're taking control because you're deciding in advance who you're going to be. Not in the moment, not when you're tired, not when you're stressed, in advance. When you're clear, when you're rational, when you can think. That's control. Chaos is just a reaction disguised as flexibility. You don't rise to your intentions, you default to your infrastructure. So look, discipline is not your problem. You got discipline. What you don't have is a system that you can trust. And without a system, discipline is just an emergency lever that you pull when things get bad enough. Hey? Infrastructure doesn't wait for emergencies. It runs in the background. Every single day, whether you feel like it or not. And I know what you're thinking, but I'm not a robot. I don't want to live my life on autopilot. And I get it. I really do. But here's the thing. Autopilot is not the enemy. Decision fatigue is. Hey, think about brushing your teeth. Think about the time that you have breakfast. Think about the time that you go to work. Think about the route that you take to work. That's all on autopilot. You default take these routes because that's how your body manages itself. That's why we have a subconscious and conscious brain. 95% of our brain is subconscious because if we're thinking about everything every single day, right, you wouldn't be able to survive. So some things have to be in the back of the mind, right? Like learning how to walk. You don't think about, oh, I've got to take one step like this and one step like that. No, it runs on autopilot in the background. Okay, so you don't have decision fatigue. Right now, you're making 100 decisions a day about your body. Should I train today? What should I eat? Should I skip this meal? Should I stay up late? And every decision is exhausting you. The systems don't make you a robot. They just make you reliable to yourself. And reliability is what you've been missing because you can't trust yourself. Not when you're tired, not when you're stressed, not when life gets hard. So you default to nothing. And then blame your discipline when discipline was never the issue. The issue is you've just never built an infrastructure that can handle your life. You build tactics that require perfect conditions, and these perfect conditions just don't exist. Your body is a scorecard for your identity. Okay? And right now your scoreboard says, I only show up when I am motivated. But motivation is not a strategy. Systems are. And systems don't care how you feel. They're just there, waiting for you to decide whether you're serious. Not about discipline, about structure. Because structure is what separates high performers from high potential. And you already know that. You just haven't applied it here. This isn't about willpower. It's about whether you can trust yourself when the conditions aren't perfect. I hope this episode was helpful for you. Please share it with another leader because, as I keep saying, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. That's how we spread the message. That's how we change when everybody listens to this and decides to take action. So if that was helpful for you, leave me a comment. Tell me how it's helped you. And make sure you take action, not just listen, because listening is all well and good, but taking action is where real change happens. All right, have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.